wonderful. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Cindy Grimes, and welcome. We've got lots of first-time visitors this morning. We're so excited to have you. It's a little bit different morning. It's not usually Christmas. I say it all the time, don't I? But it's not usually Christmas on a Sunday morning, is it? Or Christmas Eve. So we're doing it a little bit different. Our concert usually is done out on another day. We've done it out on the square, and this is the first year in a little bit that we hadn't done it out on the square. So we thought we'd just bring it in this morning and have you all enjoy our beautiful choir and get into the Christmas spirit. So I want to ask some of you, I want to ask you all actually, show of hands, I'm going to ask 3 questions, give you 3 options. How many of you just love everything about Christmas? You love buying the presents, you love the decorations, you love the music, you love everything about Christmas. Okay, interesting. All right. Y'all look around. I think I'll ask it again after everybody has an opportunity to put their hands up. How many of you just have trouble getting into that Christmas spirit? In fact, you might not even like it all that much, right? The buying the presents, the gatherings, all of that stuff around Christmas, not so much fun. Okay. How many of you are kind of lukewarm about it? You can take it, you can leave it. All right, so a lot of hands didn't go up. We're going to do it again. You love Christmas. Raise your hands nice and high. Look around. How many? Not so much. Okay. How many? Lukewarm. Well, it's almost equal. Almost. I have to say, I personally have had a difficult time getting into that Christmas spirit. And it seems year after year, it gets more and more difficult. It really does get harder, and I think it happened when I came into New Thought. A lot of things happened when I came into New Thought, but that was one of them, and I think the reason is part of what I spoke about last week. Now, you were here last week. You know, I spoke about the demographics in our country and how things are changing, cultural groups. So, historically, there have been 2 factions in our country most recently. We've got our traditionalists, and the traditionalists are the people who kind of want to love the old values. It's kind of rural America. It's let's make America great again like it was in the 40s or the 30s or the 20s or who knows. You know, that's one whole side of America. And then we've got this other faction of Americans that are more the modernists. Their thing is really all about progress and technology and financial wellness and stability. Like the number one value is money, basically. And the modern things, not so much about values and traditions. So that's been what the 2 factions have been, more or less. Now we're seeing that there's a 3rd group that's coming about. And I have a feeling that a lot of the people in this room are part of that 3rd group, the cultural creatives, we call them. So the cultural creatives actually are kind of a bridge between these 2 different sides, these 2 different polarities. The cultural creatives, if you weren't here last week, are people who value values for everyone. It's not just for a few. So we have that thing in common with the more traditional folks, is the importance of values and things like integrity and authenticity and valuing the environment and things like that. The cultural creatives actually have been at the forefront of most of our social movements. The civil rights movement, LGBT, in other words, people who are socially progressive. Those tend to be the cultural creatives. And I think of us as a bridge between those 2 different polarities. So we have the values, we appreciate, again, things like integrity and authenticity. At the same time, we can appreciate modern things. So I've been waiting for the Christmas spirit to kind of fall upon me. And it wasn't happening. And then earlier this week, it just kind of hit me, like that's not even in principle. That's not what we teach. Right? Like we're going to wait like a victim for something to come to me, instead of realizing that I can generate it myself. Right? I can generate the Christmas spirit. I'm not feeling it because it's not coming from out here. I need to feel it from coming in here. So I took a look at this idea of the traditionalists and the modernists and the cultural creatives, and I thought, I can be that bridge. Maybe I need to look at what I appreciate from the tradition and what do I appreciate from the modern, and put that all together and create that bridge for myself. And maybe I'll just feel that Christmas spirit again, and that's what I was hoping. And actually, that's what happened. So I look at the traditional things, and actually the song Shannon and I just did, "Oh Holy Night," is a really pretty good example of that, because it is a very traditional kind of song, and it brings up all that emotion and all of that joy and the sense of the holidays. But at the same time, there's some words in there that are like, ugh. You know, it kind of stings. Shannon, where are you? She rewrote most of those lyrics, and then we were in practice, and we rewrote some more, we did it again. What was the one, the sticklers? It was, "Oh, holy night, stars brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth." That's where it started. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth.
Then there was one about the sins and error, pining.
Yeah, lots of sin, error, pining. Okay, so just so you know, if you're new, this is your first time here, we have a little bit different take on Christ and Christmas and the traditions and things like that. And really what we believe in New Thought is that Jesus was not the Savior. Jesus didn't come to be the great exception, but Jesus came to be the great example. Amen. And so it was very important that we kind of rework those words. So there we took the best of tradition and the beautiful melody and the feeling of the song, and took that and then modernized it a little bit so that it fit for us, so that I could sing it and Shanna could sing it. We could be in integrity with that, because it's our values and what we believe. So it's just a little example of how this bridge thing works, of the cultural creatives and the tradition versus the modernists. So I look at the tradition and I think, what do I love about Christmas? And I love the family gatherings. I love that people reach out to others that maybe they haven't seen in a long time, and just to say, hey, I'm thinking about you because it's Christmas, or to give a special little gift. I love that stuff about the holidays. At the same time, I didn't feel like making time to decorate this year. You know, I like to give people heartfelt gifts. So I took my time this year, and the time that I would have spent stressing out over the decorations and all the craziness that happens during the holidays, I put that time into exercising and creating some really heartfelt gifts and just spending some quality time with the people I love. My parents, of course, are horrified that there's no tree in my house. They said, you're a grandmother. You became a grandmother this year. What's going to happen with the pictures? I said, the parents have trees. I'll take pictures there. I don't need to stress out about it. In other words, I'm coming up with my own traditions. Now, on the modern side of things, I love that I didn't have to go to the mall this year. I love Amazon. So there are wonderful things. There are wonderful things. Blessed be the internet. Yes, yes. So there are great things about the modern stuff. There's great things about the tradition. How do we bridge that together? I think the answer lies in your own heart and your own mind and what that means for you. But to not be afraid to step out and to do what resonates for you, what feels right in your heart. What is your value? You know, one of the things I dislike on the modern end is all of the focus on consumption and buying things. And I think of all the years I stressed out about buying the absolute perfect gift, or getting that thing that just hit the shelves so my kids would have it. Right? Anybody done that? Right? You come home and you buy all these things, and you spend all these months and weeks getting everything just right and wrapping the presents so they look beautiful, and you put them under the tree, and in 10 minutes, it's done. And there's boxes and bags and stuff everywhere, and you know, and then the kids are tired of it after a couple of days. Oh, okay, hours. They're saying hours. It doesn't even take days. So to find our own joy and our own meaning, I think is what is important. That's been my takeaway this season. I'm looking at both sides of that spectrum, and I'm saying, how can I How can I take what works for me and leave what no longer works, and just have that sense of authenticity and joy and connection in everything that I love about the holidays. And I hope that you will do the same thing. So, let me go back here. The other thing that I really love about the holiday season is all the celebrating. Love all the parties. It's also fun to see people all dressed up. And wasn't our choir cute today? All dressed up and beautiful? Yes, taking running around the choir. I love that. You see, celebrating, I think, is kind of woven into our DNA. There have been winter solstice celebrations. This is a time of year across cultures and really probably since the dawn of time. And the reason for this, the winter solstice celebrations, and Christmas is actually one of those. I did a piece last year, and I don't want to repeat it again, but of all the story stuff that goes along with Christmas, and how does Santa end up with Jesus, and all of that, there's a lot of interesting history to that, and I invite you to look some of that up. But in any case, the winter solstice celebrations have been with us for thousands of years. Ancient cultures around the world, from Europe to Asia and the Americas, developed customs and rituals designed to welcome the return of the sun and to move towards summer light and warmth. For people around the world, these celebrations remind us that the darkness must yield to the light. As day follows night and as spring follows winter, many holidays celebrate light literally, but for many, it's the celebration of a metaphoric or symbolic meaning of light, meaning illumination or enlightenment. And that really is how we look at Christmas in the New Thought movement. See, Christmas for us was not about the birth of Jesus, the man. Christmas for us is really about the birth of the Christ consciousness within us. And what does that mean, that idea of the Christ consciousness? That means having the understanding, the knowing, the experience of feeling that spirit within, right? And bringing that to light, bringing that out of yourself. Right? So it's the dawning of the Christ consciousness. There's some really, really wonderful quotes for us in The Science of Mind. And I didn't bring one, but we have some out in the lobby, just so you know this is where this information is coming from. And I want to read you a couple of quotes from The Science of Mind. It says, "The Christ is not a person, but a principle. As the human gave way to the divine, as man gives way to God, as the flesh gives way to spirit, as the will of division gives way to the will of unity." I love that. As the will of division gives way to the will of unity, Jesus became the living embodiment of the Christ. You see, Christ wasn't his last name. Okay? Jesus the Christ. Jesus the Christ. Therefore, we can also embody the Christ. So Jesus understood his own nature. He knew that as the human embodies the divine, it manifests the Christ nature. Jesus never thought of himself as different from others. You all know that, don't you? If you read the Bible, you read what he said. He never thought of himself as different. That was put on him by others. It was others who said that he was something different. His whole teaching was that what he did, others could do. What Jesus did, you and I, each one of us, can do those things if we can only allow that Christ consciousness, the birth of that, and to live it and to be it, that we could do the things that Jesus did. And he said it himself. Jesus located God and the kingdom of heaven within himself. He plunged beneath the material surface of creation and found its spiritual cause. That cause he called God or the Father. And so we're talking a real deep kind of an understanding here. Instead of looking for that whatever it is you're looking for outside of here, to realize that it all begins in your own consciousness. It is a material world, but at the same time, it is really a mental world, because everything starts in your own thinking, in your own mind, in your own heart. as the human gives way to the divine in all people, not in a few chosen ones, but in every single person, they become the Christ. Each one of us partakes of the Christ nature to the degree that the Christ is revealed through him or her, and to that degree, he becomes the Christ. So many quotes. I've got another really good one here. The answer to every question, the solution to every problem, the healing of all disease, and the forgiveness of all sin is within man, because the kingdom of heaven is within man, and man is within spirit, and the spirit is an individual whole, an indivisible whole, excuse me. And then one more for you. The evolution of the individual, the unfoldment of personality, the enlightenment of the soul, the illumination of spirit, can only come to the degree that the individual purposes to let life work through him. And so we're here to be that opening. We're here to express what is within each one of us. And as we step out, as we do those things, amazing things happen. Now last week, you were here, you know, I shared a great big vision for this center. Right? The idea that this center, by the end of 2018, this physical building here will be a reentry center for women coming out of prison, transitioning back into society. And we will then have to find a much bigger space. You see, we're going to need it here real soon. A bigger space that's in a place with more parking, that's maybe more visible, and maybe we can reach some more people, touch some more lives. Well, the inspiration for this reentry center has come out of work that I've been doing for the past 2.5 years at Marion County, Marion Correctional Institute, MCI, at the work camp. And that work started out of a letter that was written by one of the inmates who had been in a Toastmaster program in another institution, and there was no Toastmaster program at MCI when he came. So he wrote a letter wanting it to go to a Toastmaster organization somewhere in Ocala. And that letter ended up going to a friend of mine named Manal Fakori, who is very big in Toastmasters in Marion County, actually probably all over the place now. And she started that group, and that first night that we walked into the prison, we had 14 volunteers. They were hoping for one. 14 of us walked into that room. The guys had it set up where we were in the front of the room. They had all the chairs, and there were about 50 of them, and they gave us a standing ovation. We were like rock stars. It was incredible, an incredible feeling. Walking through, the checkpoint and the barbed wire and all that, had no idea what we were going to expect. It certainly was not a standing ovation. It certainly was not the joy and the appreciation that we received when we got there. So that spun off. Then I started my own group out of that. I also still do the Toastmasters, but then I go on my own a couple of times a month, and I do basically what I do here. I do my talks with the gentlemen. I have a group of about a dozen guys, and I go and I share my talks with them, and we have these great sessions, and we talk about it, and it's all just been really heartwarming and wonderful. And if you didn't hear the story, the transformation story, watch the talk from last week and listen to that. But the most amazing thing about this all, as I was debating, do I tell the congregation about this idea? Because really and truly, it's just an idea right now. Okay? Typically, I would have some plans in place. I could say, I've got this committee, I've got this person volunteering, we've got this money, we've got all this stuff lined up, and then I would come and share that with you. But there was something that was compelling me to speak about it last week. I don't know why. Again, it's just an idea. And that's not my MO. I like to be a little more prepared for things. But something in me, Spirit was prompting me to share that message last week. And there was hardly anything else I could think about. So I did it. I stepped out in faith in a big way. Right? Because now you all know what I would love to achieve, what we're talking about, and now it's like, if it doesn't happen, ooh, right? So a little scary. So anyway, I did it. And we had 2 visitors last week, and they're here again this week. I was so excited to see them, because I had to get their permission to share this story. first-time visitors, never been to this center, didn't even know what New Thought was. I shared that message, and the gentleman sitting right there, Angel Velez, says, I worked at MCI. I said, really? I thought you looked a little familiar. What did you do there? I was the assistant warden. Oh, no wonder. And then we got talking about one speech in particular. The title of it was Coming Soon to a Neighborhood Near You. That was shared by one of the inmates, by one of the incarcerated gentlemen, coming soon to a neighborhood near you. And it really was eye-opening for me to think about that. We've got people that are incarcerated, and they're there for a reason, good reason for many of them. But there is a time when most of those people are going to be coming back out. And so who do we want coming back out here? Right? Don't we want them to be ready to come back into the world and to be good citizens and all? So anyway, he says, well, I was there. I heard that. And I'm really like, holy cow, this is just amazing. So I go to the prison Tuesday night, and I share with the gentleman who wrote the letter, with Lenny Rivera. I said, a person came to the center. And now understand, they don't know. This is a small place. We're talking, how many? 70 people here today, maybe? Maybe of the 340,000 people in Marion County, he walks in the door that morning. Angel Velez is the person who took the letter from Lenny and got it to Manal. In other words, none of that would have happened without that gentleman right there. I'm still on a high. Christmas came for me last week because it's so incredible that these two people walked in the door last Sunday. If I ever needed confirmation, I have to say that was it. So we know this is an idea whose time has come, right? And it's happening. It's happening. If I had stayed in my small little ego place and thought, I can't talk about that yet. I don't have all my little ducks in a row. Right? I was, like I said, a little concerned, but I know now, the more I practice it, the more I do it, being in that presence and following the prompting and the leading of my heart, that it is always to better purpose. And it is always transformative, and it is always, always uplifting. Even if in the moment, it may not look like exactly what you want it to be. Everything, what is it Armand says, everything turns out okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. So I know in my heart of hearts, again, that this is something that was meant to be. And I feel I only share that story again, not to set myself aside or say, hey, here I am, living the Christ consciousness, look at me. It's not about that at all. It's understand that what's happening here is what we can all do. We can all do. We all of us can live that larger life that is calling to us. And we can all step into that greater understanding that it comes from living our values, from that authenticity, and from allowing that Christ within us, that Christ consciousness to emerge. And living from that place. What would Jesus do? Remember those bracelets? What would Jesus do? What would God do? Would God be afraid? Would God be afraid? Would Jesus be afraid of stepping out and saying, this is what we're doing? Absolutely not. That's absurd. It's an absurd idea. But that's what we are to do, is to find what is ours to do. What is ours to do. And listen to your heart and to your intuition. And stay tapped in, whether that's coming here, or it's doing your spiritual practice every day, or if it's communing with God, nature, whatever that is for you. But stay plugged in. Stay plugged in. The affirmation for today is every day is a holy day. As I awaken to the Christ consciousness within me, I am a light in this world. And that's in your program. I just want you to take that home with you and think about that as you go into this next week and as you go into 2018, that every day is a holy day. Every day is a holiday. Every day can be Christmas. We can generate that feeling, that love, whatever that means for each one of us in our own way, in our own lives. Happy holidays.